Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Haley and we're going to be going over timelessness, which is the SIDDHI frequency of this fifth gene key, the ending of time. And actually I just realized I misspoke. It's not the SIDDHI frequency, it's the SIDDHI state. He actually emphasizes here at the end of the chapter how all SIDDHI states cannot be really spoken of in terms of frequency. So I have misspoken. There's no frequency equated to any of the SIDDHI states, including this one of timelessness. And he says the reason for this being a frequency would require it to be on a scale. And the state of siddhis are absolute, unlimited, non-linear, therefore cannot be conceptualized in terms of time or frequency. Hence the name, timelessness, of this SIDDHI gift. He also makes a joke at the end of the chapter here talking about how it's ironic that we're trying to discuss timelessness, or any SIDDHI state for that matter, because how can we describe something that's indescribable? And then he laughs and says we can't, yet here he is trying to do it. And he goes on to say, oh, what's the point of reading any of the SIDDHI states within this book? And he answers his own questions and says, well, there is a point and there isn't. So by all means, if it's entertaining to you to watch these the videos specifically pertaining to the SIDDHI states, then do so, but also see kind of the silliness of it all. And I see the silliness of even trying to explain any of this. But once again, because it brings me joy, I continue to do it. And I can infer that writing about SIDDHI states brought Richard Rudd joy, hence the reason he was able to create such a massive piece of poetry. So if you would like to know more about the SIDDHI state of timelessness through the eyes of Richard Rudd and articulated through my mouth, then keep watching. Once again though, fun reminder, SIDDHI states can't actually be spoken of, and yeah, take what resonates and leave the rest. I also just realized, ironically enough, we started at the end of the chapter, which is very on par with the theme of timelessness. But let's go forward or back to the beginning and open up here with hitting the speed of being. This is what he titles this chapter. And I like that, hitting the speed of being, instead of hitting the speed of light. Because when I think of being, I think of the opposite of doing, right? Sitting still, listening, observing, sitting, hitting the speed of being. It makes me think of, once again, how ironic it is to speed up. Sometimes you need to slow down. He says a lot of fluffy stuff in the beginning that I'm going to kind of haze over. And the first thing that's really stuck out to me within this chapter is he gives us the example of knowing a child's genetic predisposition and how that's actually a double-edged sword, because the very knowing of this genetic predisposition increases the possibility of its occurring, right? The power of our mind putting energy, therefore putting attention toward this predisposition, might actually help manifest it into this 3D reality. Whereas maybe if the person didn't know about their child's genetic predisposition, those ill seeds of thought would not be there, therefore no attention in the form of thought is going there, therefore no energy is feeding it in order for it to come into fruition in the physical reality. So this kind of translates to everything in life, right? What we know is a double-edged sword. We can use it for us or against us, depending on the level of observance we have over our own thoughts and minds. It reminds me of the placebo effect, right? If you give a person a pill and you say, oh, this has all this vitamin C and it's going to make you feel better. A person who has their prefrontal cortex turned off will take the pill and it will work like magic, because they're not analyzing, they're not trying to figure it out, they're just fully submissive and trusting to the information that was given to them in conjunction with taking the pill. Same thing with the genetic predisposition. If the parent hearing that has their prefrontal cortex turned off, this information can be very, very dangerous. It's only when the prefrontal cortex comes online, the analytical mind is now turned on, that the person grabs the pill and says, will this make me better? I'm skeptical, I'm curious, I'm questioning. So questioning and using our mind is kind of a protective mechanism to a certain degree. Once again, though, as we all can attest to, our own thoughts can also make us ill. So it's finding the balance between being susceptible to information from outside and deciding whether it's in your highest love and alignment and discarding that which is not, and then also being aware of our own thoughts that we of our own free will are generating. Simply asking, does this serve? Do I want to make this information mine? And he emphasizes here, once again, if responding through fear, the frequency is strengthened. The parent that responds in fear to hearing that their child has a predisposed genetic condition, when they respond in fear, is that real? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I'm sad, whatever it is. Those emotional responses strengthen the belief system. The stronger the belief, the more attention going towards it, the more energy it has to once again manifest. So the main issue here is response through fear. And he goes through all of this to say that this SIDDHI state of timelessness is about living in an open-hearted state, right? The opposite of fear. Well, not exactly the opposite of fear. There's a quote I like that Joe Dispenza says where he says, fear is not the opposite of love, it's the separation from love. It's the absence of love. So we have two choices here. With every thought coming at us, whether it's our own or another giving us a pill telling us to take it and that it's going to heal us, to respond through fear, the separation from love, or to respond with an open heart, which would be to respond with love. I know this is flowery, so I'm going to break it down a little bit. So what does it mean to respond with an open heart, with a sense of timelessness, to be embodied in this SIDDHI state of timelessness? It would be to override any ill information, whether it's a doctor telling you, oh, this is how it is in the future, like your child has this thing, whether it's a thought coming at you from within your own internal being. It's open-heartedness is discerning. What's loving to me? What do I choose of my own free will, because of my mind, to ingest and therefore manifest? Open-heartedness has the intelligence to choose what it wants to align with, and it chooses to align with love. Response through fear or separation from love is seeing things as fated. Oh, well, the doctor told me, so it must be that way. Not having enough energy or belief to override certain systems or programs that are being thrown at you. Once again, whether they're society's or your own. And the truth is, he emphasizes here, is that we do have the choice to choose. Even when we're getting horrible news from our doctor saying our child has a predisposed genetic condition, we still have the choice. And again, the awareness of this, being able to choose, is the first step. Because obviously, if you've never read anything about this kind of thing, you might be thinking, this sounds like a little woo-woo, too good to be true. But once again, this is the kind of, in my opinion, this is the kind of belief that is accumulated over time in accordance to your will to want to grow into truth with reality and love. To want to choose the truth, to want to live in this open-hearted state of timelessness. This truth is momentous, this is what he says. Momentous meaning it gains momentum, right? In the last video, we talked about patience. The only way to download patience is to start practicing patience. The more you practice, the more you open your vessel to receive that frequency of patience, the more momentum grows. So this truth is momentous. The more you live in alignment with truth, the more you choose love from an open-hearted state of being, the more momentum, the more truth starts to come into your life. Another way to say that is the less false or negative programming will even enter your sphere. The less bad news or disorder, for lack of better words. And he notes here how, okay, so say receiving this information once again from a doctor saying your child is predisposed to a genetic condition. He says if you're in the shadow frequency of impatience, when you hear this, you're going to get very upset, itchy, impatient, annoyed, aggravated. The list goes on. I'm sure maybe sad, grieving, a whole host of low vibrational emotions. Whereas if you're viewing this exact same scenario from this SIDDHI state, you'll instantly become aware that a higher genetic mutation is waiting to become unlocked. Why is that? Because returning to the first gene key here, your awareness of the truth, which is all disorder breeds order, all chaos is making way and room for greater levels of love, instantly is turned on and tapped into when you hear this news. So once again, it's not changing necessarily the scenario, it's the perception that changes. Quick contemplation here. Where is impatience coming up in my life, and how can I start to shift my perception to the truth? Which is, the truth is whatever experience is causing itching and impatience can actually be viewed as an opportunity for me to grow into a greater level of myself. Simple, but not easy. And actually, on that note, simple but not easy. Okay, so how do I tap into this truth? Because this is something I've toyed with, right? I remember when I first started reading stuff like this, I'd be like, yeah, that's great. Like, I actually would love, trust me, I would love to change my perception like that and start to view this disorder from a different standpoint. But I am impatient and I'm itchy and I just can't seem to not be that way. And I would get really annoyed because I would read stuff like this and be like, okay, Richard Rudd, that sounds flowery and amazing. Can you tell me how to do it? And there's a line in here that says, only the human spirit can unlock the deepest secrets in your DNA. And when I read that, I put a little note. I said God essence next to human spirit. So to me, the way I read this and understood it was only the God essence can shift your perception. What does that mean? That means invoking your higher self, God, Shana, Shakti, Mana, Prana, whatever you want to call that thing inside of you and all around you. You cannot do this alone as an individualized point of consciousness, as an ego. Only the human spirit, only what's in here, only what's not tangible can help you elevate your perception to see disorder as a breeding grounds for love. And I've talked about this in a past video. One of my favorite ways to do this is to pray. And again, that's a very touchy word for some people. And the way I pray is very personalized to me. And I actually think all forms of prayer are very personal and unique to the individual. So, yes. Start by asking yourself what is praying to you and how can you use your own form of praying to help change your perception and really get you into alignment with your God essence. And I've mentioned this before, but if you are curious on my personalized prayer technique that I've formulated after reading countless things, then you can comment below and maybe I will make a video on that. And there's there's a nice drilling noise behind me. Sorry about that. He quickly notes here how when you go through a point of disorder, the distance between events decreases approximately 1/2 every time it occurs. Meaning, say you go through a really, really hard time for 2 years, and then you finally come out of it, you see all the love and the light and the breathing, you're gonna get a little break, but then in the half the amount of time that it took you to go through that, you're going to go through something again. That's kind of, once again, there to shake things up and elevate you to new levels of love. So actually, on the spiritual journey, something no one talks about is how when you do start to cultivate awareness, things start coming one after the other, seemingly really fast. And this is because you've started your journey to a certain degree. Not that your journey ever wasn't online, but your awareness is switched on and you're ready to start processing. This is what he says, at least within the book. Every time you experience an inflow of SIDDHI high frequency, you move through an intense period of mutation. That's another way to say you move through a dark night of the soul. If you've never heard that term before, you can look it up on YouTube, Dark Night of the Soul, and you'll find plenty of resources. It's something very unique, once again, to the individual. My personal dark night of the souls have looked very different from one another. Just a few weeks ago, when I was moving through kind of something a little tough, it looked like me crying on the kitchen floor. I've had other ones where it just looks like weeks of kind of an apathetic attitude toward life. But once again, after moving through this phase, there's always a greater level to experience and kind of bear the fruit of what you've been through and learned. He talks about how this stage can be very challenging and disorienting, and reminds us that it's because the body is being literally rebooted, upgraded to a new frequency. And the reason he's talking about this within this chapter is because to be truly embodied in a SIDDHI state, you need to have gone through the processing stages. And he mentions here how usually this is done periodically through different events in your life. Occasionally, however, like what Eckhart told, it was like in a moment where he became enlightened. That's usually not the case, but it is possible because anything is possible. But yes, he talks about how through every trial and tribulation you move through, you will come out the other end feeling stronger, lighter, and quite literally more filled with light, eventually leading you to an embodied, sedimented state of this SIDDHI state. Not frequency, state. SIDDHI state. And he calls enlightenment in this chapter the speed of being. He gives this analogy here. He says, our lives are like a candle flame flickering in the winds of duality. He's so poetic sometimes. Our lives are like the candle flame flickering in the winds of duality. Impatience to patience, impatience to patience, impatience to patience. Fear to trust, fear to trust, fear to trust. Back again endlessly. We're just this flickering candlelight. Disorder to order, disorder to order, impatience to patience, impatience to patience, trust to fear, trust to fear. But he says in the SIDDHI state, you've jumped out of the game. You are not identified with the candle flame, even though it goes on flickering. So once again, it's not that the flame is not moving, the flame is still moving, it's just that now you have a different perception. You are not the candle flame, you are watching the candle flame as it moves. So it's a change of observation, a change of viewpoint, a change of perception. The candle does go on flickering. This is so important. I used to think enlightenment meant everything was unicorns and rainbows. Now I understand it's not that life stops happening. There's still a fluctuation. It's just that The enlightened person is able to view the fluctuation with a higher level of perception, with a sense of gratitude when they see the impatience or the fear or the disorder, because they know it leads to a higher level of patience and order and love. So it gets them excited. It gets them open-hearted. It gets them filled with gratitude. He says timelessness simply is. Once again, he's trying to describe this Siddic frequency in the confines of a language, which is impossible. So these are parts to meditate on, in my opinion. These kind of simple truths that can't be explained because they're not meant to be explained. This thing knows, so the best thing you can do, in my opinion, is sit with this phrase, timelessness simply is, and meditate on it if that speaks to you. He goes back and he says, this Siddic state comes online when the set of patterns that you call yourself, when the back and the forth of the candle flame, finally experiences itself as nothing more than a set of patterns. Once again, you're not the candle flame. You're seeing the set of patterns, the back and the forth, as a candle flame, as a set of patterns. It just is what it is. And I can sit over here and look at it. This is how you embody this Siddic state. This great change occurs when the smaller self, the ego, stops trying to interfere with the flickering of the candle flame of awareness from one state to another. Okay, so what would it look like for me to stop interfering with the candle flame, to stop identifying with the candle flame? That would mean I have to stop judging when it's flickering this way and this way and this way. I would have to stop trying to change it and force it to only stay this way. Stop trying to control it or prefer it to be a different way than it already is. To stop interfering with the flickering of the candle flame is to, once again, watch it do what it does and just sit over here and watch. No judgment, no control, no low vibrational opinions, just watching it do its dance. Once again, thankful for the points in which order and patience come, and also thankful for the points in which impatience and disorder come, knowing that they're igniting you to a new level of yourself. And he says that this happens when there's no more fight left in you. You can't force yourself to be content with the way things are. It's something that comes over you, this sense of surrender. And it's when you have no more fight left in you. It's when you're fed up with judging yourself, with trying to control. You're exhausted. You see the futility in it, and you quite literally have no more energy to expend. That part was interesting to me because I was like, I can relate to that. That was when things finally changed for me in the modeling industry, when I was just so tired of judging myself and so tired of trying to control everything that I had no fight left in me, and a sense of surrender came over me, and I started to finally change and be okay with the way things just naturally are. So sorry, I'm like totally sweating. The sun is like creeping up on me. And the last thing he says here, one more thing is true to say. The more deeply your mind grasps the fact that you cannot do anything in life, the more you must begin to surrender both to your smaller genetic nature and your greater galactic nature. The more you realize you cannot do anything. You are a byproduct of the way nature moves, and your only job is to surrender to the way things are, to watch the candle flame. So yes, that is all he has to say within that 5th gene key. Join me tomorrow to get into the 6th, and hopefully it won't be, well actually, see, this is the perfect opportunity to just accept the heat and the disorder of this moment. beautiful sweat on my face. But yeah, it will be nice tomorrow when it's a bit shadier. See you guys. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in with me for this Gene Keys episode. I also just wanted to come on here and start promoting my one-to-one coaching that I offer to women and girls ages 16 to 35. If you've followed me on Instagram for a while, you might be a little bit familiar with my story. I was a model in New York City for 5 years, and in that time frame, I did quite some damage. I developed a really severe eating disorder, body dysmorphia, chronic anxiety. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even go out to dinner without thinking about how much calories, how much I'd have to overwork out in order to compensate for what I was eating. All of those issues led to quite a depression and turned into PCOS, and I also lost my menstrual cycle for over 5 years. All of this amalgamation of issues led me to soon realize that something needed to change. I went through much work. Many people helped me to get to where I am now, and I'm so thrilled to say I'm living such a more abundant life, and I don't feel zapped and drained and fear of judgment anymore like I used to. I would love to offer what I've learned through my own embodied experience, the meditative techniques that have gravitated toward me, and the own verified games that I've made up and curated to help you walk home to more of you and who you really are, so that all of these things can stop draining your energy. You know, all the constant comparison to others and to your people on Instagram, all the over-analysis about working out and what you're eating or what you look like. All of these things are not what life's about, as cheesy as it sounds. And I would love to help you come into more unity with you if you struggle with any of these things and you're a woman or girl between the ages of 16 and 35. So feel free to reach out to me if one-on-one coaching sounds resonant. You can feel free to DM me through Instagram or contact me via email, both of which will be left below in the description box. So much love and aloha to you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.